Welcome to the Great Honey Podcast. I'm Maya, the Amerlin Bee,
I'm Marcelle, the Gleeman.
and this is a show where we talk about all things Wheel of Time. And if you're joining us from YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe and leave a comment so we can chat. And where did we leave off last month? Was it
I know
last month?
it's been a minute. It's been a minute, but we're back. Last month, we're on the Great Hunt. We left off with Rand and Loial and Hurin waking up in a weird world, kind of like what seems to be an alternate world. And I think kind of we're trying to figure out where they are and how they can get back. And if Rand himself kind of like inadvertently sent them there. We don't know. We know he can channel, but we don't know exactly how they got there. So I think that's kind of where we start off. So chapter 14 kind of picks up where the rest of the Shinarans, Perrin and Matt, who are kind of left behind in what seemingly is a normal world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of get into Perrin's head, I think, for the first time in this book. As I've said before, previous episodes, Perrin's my favorite character. So I honestly, I love all the Perrin chapters. I think sometimes he can be a little like dry, a little bit, but I don't know. I just appreciate the character, so it's nice to get back into his head. But in this one, we kind of get to deal with the extremes of Perrin, where he deals with being kind of vulnerable. And I think that's the best sort of way, because this is this is a guy who is careful and very cautious. And I feel like this puts him in a place where he has to figure out, you know, he knows he's got to follow Rand. He knows he's got to continue after the dagger. He knows Hurin's no longer there, which means they can't track. And he knows he has to now use his ability as a wolf brother, as we learn, to kind of track where Fane and the Dark Prince have gone, because he has no idea where Hurin, Loial, and Rand have gone. And so it's kind of, he just kind of does his duty in this way. But yeah, what do you think of Perrin when he, in this chapter is a good chapter of just kind of reconnecting with Perrin, learning about his growing ability, because it seems to continue to grow here. But he reaches out to wolves, he talks to them, he can send mental images to them. They can communicate in what seems to be like some sort of not necessarily like talking, but they're sending images back and forth. Sense, I guess, is what
Yeah, it's like they
we
send
refer to it as.
feelings, like
Yeah,
intangible thoughts, which is like an interesting way to communicate. But
yeah,
yeah, I first of all I thought it was funny, like Perrin and Matt initially thinking that Rand went off without them in like a ego-driven way. Like they're like he wants to be the hero that finds everything. And
right.
and then like there's that like weird little like rift in their friendship again, and like they don't really know what's going on, but of course they have to keep going. And also I just appreciate, like you said, where parent has to be vulnerable and tell someone that he has his ability that is like dangerous for people to know. And
Right.
I thought it was very sweet of Ingtar to just like play it off and just be like, oh, he can smell too. He's a sniffer
I
too.
thought that was interesting too. It's like Ingtar's like, he's heard of this ability before that Perrin has. He's heard of the Wolf Brother ability, but he knows that if he tells people, they would be concerned about
Yeah.
it, because it's kind of like wolves aren't necessarily thought of in the best light. So the fact that men would have some sort of mental ability connection with them isn't ideal. So he's like, okay, I get it. I've heard of this ability, and I will keep your secret and just say that you're a sniffer as well. And then you can use the wolves to help us track Fane in the Dark Friends, which I think is an interesting way to go about it, because it's like it keeps Perrin able to like keep it secret, but also like actually begin to explore his ability. So it's a nice little avenue for him
And
to
he
do
gets
that.
something to do. I feel like in the last book,
Yeah.
he didn't really have anything to do except like
No, he didn't.
be kind of sad.
Which is a kind of a specialty of parents,
Yeah, it's
being very
true.
sad. What did you think about Matt's reaction to this? Because he's not telling Matt the truth either, which I found interesting. I kind
Oh,
of thought
yeah.
that like he would, it's weird to me in that moment that he wouldn't like tell Matt either about it. He never he never is vulnerable with Matt in this moment, when I feel like Matt's the only one that could possibly like, you know, aside from Ingtar, like Ingtar, I don't think actually like, you know, really thinks about how Perrin feels about this. Clearly it's a hard thing for him to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I feel like part of it is just kind of maybe Perrin worrying for Matt's well-being, because that's like kind of like the main reason why they're going in the first
Right.
place, like the two of them, is to get the dagger. And I don't know, I feel like they're all really careful around Matt. I
Yeah,
guess I don't
that's
really
true.
get why they didn't tell them. I mean, like, I almost kind of feel like it could have been a nice moment when they found out that Rand is the Dragon Reborn, for them to all just be like, I'm this, even though Matt, you don't really know like what the dagger
Right,
fully
right.
did to him yet, but like,
But
I,
they both knew. But like,
yeah,
so it was kind of like already a thing. Like they knew it made him weird. So it was like he didn't actually have to say anything. But
does
they could
Egwene
have confided.
know that he can talk to wolves, or like,
I think Egwene is really the only one besides Moraine that knows, and Lan, I guess. But
yeah,
yeah, I feel like the rest of, I mean, I guess maybe Nynaeve too, but like I don't know how much she knows. I just think she knows that like the
something's
yellow
up.
eyes is like weird.
Yeah,
Which they
hope
all
he's
probably
not
know at this
sick.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe like with telling Ingtar, it's just he is like a utilitarian choice almost. Like
Yeah.
we have to keep going and do our mission, and I can help, and Ingtar's in charge. So I'm just gonna
Right.
take the risk. And
I like
Ingtar
that.
is like driven to like get the dagger and the horn. Like he like is really serious about it. So I feel like anything that Perrin could do to help Ingtar with his goal, Ingtar is going to be like, sure, let's go.
I mean, all I was gonna say in reference to Ingtar himself, and like the fact that the way he reacts to Perrin, yeah, like you said, like Ingtar is ready to complete the mission, and I think also Perrin is as well. I feel like Perrin, no matter how he emotionally feels about things, he's gonna do what's necessary, and I think him and Ingtar kind of connect in that way, and so I think that's why he's able to kind of confide with Ingtar in this, but he does still keep it close to the vest, and he really doesn't want anyone to know about it. Perrin doesn't, because he feels very gross and like he hates himself for this ability. So it's
Yeah.
like, um, it's an interesting sort of like thing to deal with when he's, also in the shadow of Rand, who has like probably a worse sort of fate, but he still has his own stuff to deal with. So it's an interesting sort of dynamic going on there.
Yeah. Another funny thing about this chapter is that just when the boys think they're free of Aes Sedai influence, Varen catches up with them.
Right. Varen to die. One of my favorite Aes Sedai, I think. I think it's fair. It's easy for me to say. But yeah, she catches
I
up
won't
to
ask
them.
why. I like her.
I will not say why either. She's a great character, but I think when she shows up here, I think it's telling because it's unclear whether she was directed by Moraine. I think maybe she says Moraine told her to come, but it's unclear. And it's like I feel like she's equal parts like, can you trust her? But like also like she's lovable. And like I like her. I feel like she's helpful too. So it's a hard dynamic to shake with her because she's
Yeah.
just so like she's got two things going on, like a weird sort of like I can't place her, but also like I'm intrigued by her like level of weirdness or quirkiness is almost what the best word for her.
She gives me Basset Hound vibes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's
She's the part about her too that's like, that's really interesting to me and mostly like the brown Aja is like this, I guess. I don't know. But I think when we get Varen, she's so interested in learning stuff. It's hard to understand how much she's interested in anything else. Is she just here to like figure out and follow Rand, or is she actually here to help? And I think that's a problem that like probably Matt and Perrin kind of think about. I think, she seems like she's just there for Rand and to follow him as the Dragon Reborn and not really help them, which is,
yeah.
a concern of theirs.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited about the Baron stuff because it's always just like interesting.
Yeah.
It's like if Velma like was like not mean, but I don't know, just like only Jinkies and nothing else about Velma. That's like Baron.
Yeah, I feel like that's it. Like she's just like, I don't know, she's like someone you can like find like reading like a dissertation like while you're trying to talk to her or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like in the middle of some like really like philosophical thought or something. And then she's just like, oh yeah, what are you saying? Kind of deal.
And then we get back to seeing what Rand, Loial, and Hurin are doing in the Upside Down.
Chapter 15, where Rand, Loial, and Hurin kind of are traversing this weird sort of like upside down world. I think is literally what you said, which is a good analogy for this.
No,
But
my internet.
all right, so we pick up chapter 15 with Rand, Loial, and Hurin. They're in this weird world that they've kind of realized is kind of like an imperfect sort of world filled with kind of weird things going on. And like they all sort of like can tell. And I think Rand is like in the void most of the time because he can't, anytime he looks to the right or left, like the world like lurches and it's like, almost like being like that effect when you like are done spinning like a bunch. You kind of feel like that's kind of what this world feels like. And so Rand is in the void. Seems like Hurin is just only focused on trying to follow the trail of the Dark Friends and Fane. And Loial is just kind of like drawn in on himself. He's not really being so active in what's going on. But so this is a weird kind of place, I think is what we're supposed to realize. There's a bunch of weird stuff going on. I think we talked about weird statues that don't really exist in the normal world or here. So it's like pieces of I think it's like a piece of
Arthur Hawke,
or
right?
Arthur Hawkwing's statue, which doesn't exist in the real world. I think only the head of that statue exists in their world. But in this world, most of it is here. So it's kind of a weird sort of thing. It lets you know that they're in a weird sort of place. And I think it's also interesting to note that like they kind of Loial and Hurin are kind of like treating Rand as like the leader. They like call him like, Hurin always calls him Lord. Loial defers to Rand and they kind of just follow his lead, even though he has no idea what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like pretty spooky. Like it's interesting like trying to imagine if I fell asleep next to a rock and then woke up and I was like in the exact same place, but everything was just off enough. Like, isn't some of the like geography also kind of in the wrong place? Like
Yeah.
the mountains are like just slightly east or something, and it's just
Yeah.
unnervingly different that you're like, what's going on?
Right. Yeah. It's like it's all like slightly askew as to like not be recognizable, but like if you thought about it, you could recognize the place kind of thing. That's kind of how the sense I get of it, where it's just
Yeah.
kind of literally like if you were looking in like an inverted mirror or something, or
Yeah.
if you were looking at the world through an inverted mirror. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of like things that are happening here that like I think we alluded to this before where there's like smoke screens in the sky. I think we cut it out of the last video because I wasn't sure if it was in the last
I think it's
chapter.
chapter actually.
Right, right. I think you're right. But yeah, I think really there's just like a bunch of stuff going on that like seems weird, you know, like, and they can't figure it out. Loial has an inkling, you know, that like, yeah, obviously he can tell like that statue was the Art Harkwing statue, you know, was toppled in our world. So like the fact that it's here is an indication of something. Um, but yeah, you know, so it just is a kind of a weird place. They don't really know what to do. And, you know, Rand tried to use the portal stone last chapter to get them back, failed. And so now they're just relying on, you know, what Hurin can sense about or, you know, follow in terms of the path that Fane and the Dark Friends are leaving, which still feels weird to him, which I guess we're supposed to also think about as weird as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also just strange to think that they're like walking through this empty place, following a trail, and then there's no sign that they actually like are following anyone
Yeah.
on the landscape. I guess they take a nap or something, right?
These weird places that they like, you know, in the ways in the last book, and then like, and now it's the weird world. It's like hard to think about being able to sleep in something that seems so awful.
There's one thing
But
about Wheel of Time characters is they get their 8 hours.
they get the 8 hours, but they're able to sleep and apparently ran dreams. And in this dream, Balsamon appears before him, and they're kind of it seems like Balsamon realizes who Rand is. He calls him by name and like asserts that he is, you know, Luthera and he's the dragon. He knows now. And it's like, you know, no longer a question between him, but between Rand, Perrin, and Matt. It's, you know, that Balsamon knows. Also, you know, Rand learns that he's dead, and like not dead, you know, he's alive.
Dang
Or at
it.
least, you know, there's a dream that like, you know, and in this dream he's burned by Balsamon in some way, but I think Balsamon kind of references the fact that Egwene has seen him
Mhm.
in his dreams, but he also comments on the fact that like Rand or Lews Therin has like always gotten together a group of weird or like uncommon like, you know, allies, looking at Hurin and Loial as they were sleeping in this dream. But yes, so essentially, you know, to kind of reinforce the fact that this dream is real, a heron is branded into Rand's hand from the sword that he carries with him, his father's sword. So when he wakes up, he has that burn in the next chapters that we read. But I don't know, what do you think about the dreams here? And what do you think about the fact that like Balsamon seems to be working? You know, I think we saw in Egwene's last chapter that Balsamon seems to be working with some other woman, and they seem to be planning. To me, it all is, you know, in hindsight, it's pretty clear. But like, I'm curious what you think.
I mean, honestly, I was so stuck on the burn part. And like it just seems like one of those annoying dreams that Rand has where Balsamon just pops up and says some spooky stuff to him and then lets Rand like brood about it the next day. And
Right.
so it's hard to tell like what's so significant about this moment that it's like he's getting a permanent brand on his hand from it. That's like
Right.
a part of the prophecy, even though there's like so many things that like point to Rand being the dragon reborn and so many like prophecies that keep getting fulfilled that it's like, why is this so important? So that's like what I was stuck on. And other presences, like I'd always kind of interpreted it as being Egwene who's like there, just like happens to be there and not necessarily someone else who I won't say because I don't want to like mess it up, but but yeah, that's kind of like my thoughts on at least like up to this point of Rand and the dream sequences.
Yeah.
Like it's just like, why did his hand get burned? And then it's something that like carries through like the rest of the books. And like when I decided to reread it at first, it was kind of, this was one of those things where like, did I miss something when he like burned his hand? And then I was like, oh wait, I don't really know if I really missed that much when he burned his hand, and it was something that just like happened.
Right. Yeah, I think there's weird the stuff carrying from dreams to real life is inconsistent in my mind. Because sometimes the things that happen to him in the dreams don't carry through. So I don't know what it means specifically when something does. Um, I'm speaking in terms of, in this part of my reading.
Yeah.
If I'm going back in time.
Yeah.
But like
I'm sure
I do
you know
think that
something and you're just like, oh my God.
I think it's part of the dream world is like um we learn a lot about the dream world, and I think some of that stuff gets explained, though it is still kind of confusing what the point of these dreams are at this stage for Balsamon. Like, what is he? I mean, we do know he's trying to tempt Rand to the dark. That's his continual goal, right? And I think maybe he thinks he can do it because Rand is, he's basically a kid. He is really unexperienced, not very knowledgeable about what's going on. So I think a lot of it is like, also Balsamon seems kind of insane himself. So there's part of that going on too. But yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that's happening here that's weird. And I think it's supposed to be like that, but it does kind of leave this impression on you as the reader as like, what's going on here? Like, why is this happening? And is this an act? Like, it's unclear if these are real things, and they're reinforcing that it's real because he's got the burn marks. He's got, the bats that like come in from the dreams. Like, there's stuff that seems to be real about the dreams. We don't know which aspect of the dreams are real or not, but something about them is. So
Is it that like as far as Balzamon's power goes and like how he's able to move through the world is just that he can only really be in the dream world to like influence people? Is that it? Or except
I
maybe
don't
at his
know.
lair thing? Like,
I
is
think
that it?
I
That's
think I think it's fair to say that Balsamon exists and can be in the real world. I think that's fun to say. Like, I don't think that there's like a reason that he has to do things through the dream world. I think he prefers it though, because I think at this point, at least based on what we've seen so far, I think he's trying to convert Rand, but
Mhm.
also, he's trying to turn him to a shadow. And I think that's his goal right now. But he's also kind of insane. So it seems kind of seems like a weird thing for him to do, since he's like kind of like off, he's a little bit tilted, he's a bit weird. You wouldn't expect that be that to be the guy to like, ease you into like, some sort of thing you're against, innately, which is the whole thing about this world. Is like everything is, like, I think we talked about this before, it's like there isn't a religion necessarily, but like I guess you could call it religion, like the fact that like the shadow is bad, the shadows associated with Murdral and like Tyrolix and the Dark One, and all those things are very bad, and everyone knows those things aren't like just stories. Everyone knows that there's a real for the most part. So, in that way, it's like, why would you get someone who's half mad and like trying to tempt you to join that stuff? It seems like a losing prospect.
I mean, when I try to get people to do stuff, I always burn them. So
that they remember that you told them to.
I don't know.
This kind of leads us to the next chapter. So basically after that dream, I think in chapter 6, Moran kind of wakes up and they talk. I think this is actually when they see the statue in chapter 16.
Yeah.
But then I think Loial sees the burns in this chapter, or he sees that burn, and he asks Rand about it, and Rand's like doesn't talk about it,
hides it kind of, right?
Yeah, and it's
Loial doesn't know. Loial only just figured out on his own that Rand is Taviran, but like doesn't know the extent of it.
That's true. And though I would assume Loial knows the prophecies, and the fact that he's I mean, I would expect he knows the Koreathon cycle, or he's read it a few times probably. And the fact that Rand has a heron burned into his hand, or maybe he doesn't see that it's a heron. I guess that's fair to say. But I think Loial's starting to pick up on. I think if he hasn't already, he's starting to pick up on it.
Yeah,
that Rand's a little different. He's built a little different.
He's very polite though, so he's not gonna like say it probably.
Yeah.
And then I guess while they're kind of looking around, they just see a woman in the distance. Or do they hear her screaming?
I think they hear her screaming. Yeah.
I think they hear her screaming.
She's being chased by we talked about this before, but there's a thing called a Grom, which is a three-eyed beast sort of thing that is somewhat frog-like, but also the size of a bear. It's very weird. It's a very weird creature that is chasing this woman. And, of course, Rand he jumps into his hero mode.
It's kind of funny. And everyone's like, Rand, what are you doing? And he just goes for it.
Yeah.
It's like damsel in distress.
Yeah. I mean, he knows what to do. He knows the stories. He knows that, if anything, he might be in one of those stories. So might as well just shoot this thing in the eye, which actually, luckily for him works. And his Two Rivers bow, which is, I think typically these Two Rivers bow, I don't know how much, it's a slight spoiler, but Two Rivers bows are better than the average bow, is all I'll say. And so not only that, he's pretty good with the bow, Rand is. And so he's able to fell this thing, or to kill it. And so he saved Selene.
And what does she look like?
Her name.
Like what's Selene's vibe?
She is literally the most attractive woman ever that Rand's ever seen. More attractive than the love of his life, Egwene. More attractive than anyone he could ever think of. And apparently she also enamors Loial, who isn't even human. So this is a very attractive woman, is what we learn about Selene.
And she's wearing an iconic and immaculate white dress.
Right.
That I imagine has like very like subtle sparkly details, and is like incredible. Like she looks amazing, not at all like she has been attacked by a
Right.
frog bear.
Yeah. She doesn't seem to be as disturbed by that. And she also is very seemingly taken with Rand in a way that, like,
Yeah.
she's like, talking about glory and like,
Yeah.
telling Rand that like he's so like, amazing for having saved him and or saved her. And she's kind of bolstering his ego a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
And
it's a
and
interesting sequence.
he can't place how old she is. Like
Right.
you can't tell if she's really old, like a middle-aged, or if she's Rand's age. And but she's not an Aes Sedai. She very adamantly insists.
Right. And she also has a weird, I don't know if I wrote down the name, but she has like a weird name for Loial. She knows of the Ogier, clearly, but she doesn't call them Ogier for some
She
reason.
calls him like an ancient name, right? I don't want to Google it
Yeah.
because I don't want to like
It's hard to remember exactly what she calls them. But yeah, she's got this sort of like otherworldly slash, that's why Rand keeps asking her, is she Aes Sedai? And like wondering how she got to the world, that they're in.
Yeah.
Like I think Rand has an idea that he, with his, use of the one power, kind of brought them there and brought Hurin and Loial and himself there. But he's wondering, how did Selene get there?
Mhm.
And he's convinced, I think, in some ways that she's an Aes Sedai in some way, or that she can at least use the one power and she doesn't know it, kind of like him. So there's a sort of like a weird situation here where now, of course, Rand's still in charge of the group, and he kind of fills, Selene in a little bit on what they're doing. They're looking for the Horn of Valir. And
Stupid.
yeah,
It's so
very
stupid.
not a good idea, I think we find out. But he does it. And also I think we've kind of learned that like Selene has I don't know, I mean, like immediately, and this might be a thing that I just knew to look for when I was reading this, but like, I don't know. As soon as I read this character, I'm just like, this character seems off. It seems like a potential bad guy character. I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't have any real hints, but she's talking about the glory. She's like fawning over Rand, and Rand, like uncharacteristically, is just like so taken and smitten by her that it kind of throws me off the whole time. And I'm just like, seems like, some sort of magic she's wielding on him, and especially since Loial also is like so enamored with her. I
And
don't know.
Hurin too.
Yeah, both of them.
I feel like for me, like even in my first reading, I was just like, something's up with her. Like, what's up with all this, like trying to motivate Rand? And she like talks to him like she knows him like really intimately. And it seems so strange. And also just like really strange that like Rand, who's like spent an entire book and a half at this point basically getting chased around by dark friends, and like one of those was like a beautiful noble woman, like you'd think that he would be cautious. So it's like,
yeah,
and she's like in this weird parallel universe place looking like she just like stepped out of like a carriage or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't trust her. That was my immediate reaction.
Yeah. And I kind of felt that. I felt like it was weird because I felt like Rand was weird around her. I felt like everyone was weird around her. And so, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that, she's a bit mischievous or sus, I think is what I wrote in our notes. Definitely a sus character.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess it just kind of continues of them getting chased by more Groms. Grom? Is it
Rome, yeah.
Is it just Grom parallel, no S?
I don't think there's an S to it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
I
like
might keep
deer.
saying Groms because it's funny.
That's fine.
Yeah, they just like keep running from the Grom. Celine
And
tells them
they get
it's
attacked by
too.
like a track, or sorry, they get attacked by a pack of Grom.
Yeah, and Rand tries to like fight them because he killed the one, but Celine is
Right.
like, you can't kill all these Grom. It's not the same as just one. So
Right.
run. And then surprise, surprise, the Grom chased them to another portal stone, which I
Right.
also thought was weird. And then
Yeah.
she seemed to just be like, let them chase us. Like,
And Rand is trying to get to, I mean, so like, while they're trying to flee from the Grom, I think Rand actually like prefers to use the bow instead of the one power. And he
yeah.
kills as many as he can with his bow. And everyone's very impressed by the fact that he's able to do it. And I think, though, he's unintentionally using the one power to do this. But like, he kills all of them with the bow. And he has very limited arrows. So it was, a feat in and of itself. But, when they get to the portal stone, Rand doesn't actually want to, he keeps pressing Celine. Do are you sure you can't do this? Like, you got
Yeah.
yourself here. Can't you get yourself out and like get us out? I don't want to have to use the one power. She's so afraid to use it. But she keeps pushing him to it, and she like knows of the void that Rand uses, but she calls it the oneness, which is interesting. So she has an idea of the void, and she knows kind of what that means for. She seemingly knows a lot about what men can do when they channel, because
Yeah.
it seems like she's like not being very coy by the fact she knows that this is how it can work, and I don't know. She can't really say how it works for men, but she can speak around it at least.
Really motivating me to keep reading so I can get questions answered that I cannot ask right now because I don't want to ruin it for anyone.
Celine's an interesting character. I think she's very telling, but also mischievous enough and like ambiguous enough to keep you guessing. So I think she's it's one of the characters. It's like one of my favorite characters that Robert Jordan introduces that is like this sort of this nature. Like, is it a good guy? Is it a bad guy kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, it's fun. Like, it's kind of like, even if they're evil, like, it's going to be an interesting to see how this goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess the oneness / the void is super interesting to me. Like I always wonder why Tam, Rand's father, like taught him it, and why it was such like a important part of Rand's like way that he deals with things. It's so interesting. Like I like want to know, but I also don't
Right.
know.
It's like in the Wheel of Time world, it's always kind of described as like a soldier's trick or some
like
way to like,
mindfulness.
yeah. I wonder if there's like a real like a real life sort of like analogy to it, or a real life sort of like
Because
idea.
Land does it too, but he calls it something else.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine it's a probably based because like Robert Jordan did fight God, I want to say in Vietnam. Yeah, Vietnam. And but yeah, I mean, I would imagine actually people who fight in wars probably do develop some sort of like way to like separate their emotions from what's going on. This is a way to survive. And I think that's what he's kind of trying to emote here.
Yeah. It makes me kind of sad how much Rand has to use the void.
Yeah.
Like, so like it'll just be like he'll just be standing somewhere and just feeling uncomfortable, and that's where he goes. And it makes me kind of sad.
It's a very good, it's a good it's a good sort of like plot device to kind of explain what's going on. But it's also, like you said, yeah, it's very sad to see.
Yeah. But surprisingly, Celine's coaching to like have Rand use the void that he's already practiced to get to like that space actually like gives him the ability to the one power
Yeah.
and they make it home through the portal
Yeah.
stone.
They get back. I think the part of it that I always like when, especially in these early books, when they're talking about Rand using the one power and how like it's he feels so good about it, and like, you know, it's so awing, and like he can't, you know, really imagine anything else as good as being connected to the one power, but also then like the equally like awfulness of the corruption or the like dark one's touch on the one power for men. I don't know, I've always felt drawn to it, and the way that Robert Jordan describes it. And I think you see it here because they never discuss men, you know, Rand touching the one power without also like feeling so great about it. And like, you know, same way that, you know, women might touch the one power.
Yeah.
But for men, they also have to deal with equal parts of like the awfulness of it as well, which I think is very interesting. And I've always been drawn to that description of that.
It's a weird thing to me that the Aes Sedai can't teach him how to use it because it seems so similar to what the women do, and I just wonder if they just don't know it because it's been so long since they like I just can't tell what's different about it between the two of them other than that like any like the women wouldn't necessarily know how it works.
I think of it in like the way of like for channelers, like for the Aes Sedai, I think of it the same way that like conservative, like sort of like traditionalists think about like the trans community. You know, like the idea is so foreign to them, and it seems to break the concepts that they have about humanity. You know, even though like it's possible and it doesn't necessarily, it isn't bad in any way. So it's like I feel like in some ways it's sort of like analogous of that, where it's just like it's been ingrained in society, maybe in the Wheel of Time specifically talking about men channeling, that there's a reason for that, right? Because they broke the world and ruined it, and so there's actually a reason why they should feel prejudiced against that idea.
Yeah, it's just weird that it's like I can't teach you how to do it, but I don't know, it seems like maybe they could try, but they also like just can't. It's like so deep. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of you know, and I think part of it is for the Aes Sedai, at least for Moraine. I think it's just like I know that I can't and that's kind of all I know. You know, it's like, you know, perhaps they could, and there's no like idea that they can't specifically. You know, there's some limitations obviously when it comes to women and men channeling. I think, you know, obviously women can't see what men can channel. I think that's been, hopefully I haven't like spoiled anything, but there's like women can't see or detect men channeling.
Oh yeah, that's not spoiling. That's because that's something Egwene learns. I guess we could have talked about it in the last episode when the like Aes Sedai are coming into the tent and kind of giving them little lessons, is that once you're trained, you can see when another woman is channeling because they have like a glow around them, kind of like my ring light gives me a glow.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yes. I think that's I don't know if that's true for the show, but I do know, I think it's true for the books, where women can detect and see other women channeling when they're in eyesight, or if they're in a close enough proximity, they can feel it. But they can't
hard
sense
in
men.
the show to show that because I wonder how they're going to deal with it, because it seems like in the scenes where they show channeling, they have like someone's like point of view, like a specific character's point of view in mind.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, because sometimes it looks like they're channeling, but you can't see the weaves.
Right.
I mean, I need to
I feel
rewatch it
like
to make sure, but I
I
feel
feel
like
like the
I've
showrunner
seen.
said that it depends on who is kind of the POV character, but I don't know. I don't know. It's a hard thing to depict outside of the like, outside of the written medium. Like I don't know how do you describe, you know, the weaves without like, being in the head of a character, as
Yeah,
you're writing them. So it's kind of when it's specifically that only certain characters can see it. Seems like a difficult thing to kind of show on screen.
yeah.
We'll see.
That's my bit of, I guess, show theorizing for today.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we can get some more show news. We can start talking about that again.
I know.
It's been so long.
There's been a there's been some leaks today.
Leaks?
Yeah, if you go on Twitter, they said there's someone who they think they have Avienda cast, Brigitte, maybe
Avienda and
Gaul.
Brigitte?
Yeah, well,
Wow.
that's what everyone's saying. I don't know why it would be Brigitte, because I don't even know who that is. Like, I know who it is because of spoilers, but I don't know
Right,
who it
right.
is. So
They did bring her up in in one of the episodes of the show, but not in the
yes.
books yet. I don't
So
think.
I don't know. It seems like they're gonna compress a lot of Matt things this season.
Yeah.
That's my one thing I think they're gonna do. So maybe.
I've heard that, I mean, I know that they've cast Avienda,
Yeah.
which I guess you meet in this book or in the next one.
No, it's in the next one.
Okay. I'm excited for her casting. I really like her character. So
Me too. I was
I'm
like
gonna go check
really.
these leaks after we're done because I'm excited to find out who that's gonna be.
Should have been on the internet today.
I know. I don't know what I was thinking not being on there.
And then
Um,
I guess after they reach back to the normal world, we get back to Egwene's POV, where
yeah,
she has another weird dream where Rand's in it, and so is the Dark One.
yeah, she sees him again. Is
I
this the way she
wonder.
also sees um she sees him looking over them and then disappearing?
I think that was before. I think she saw that happen right before he went through the portal. Like he
Okay,
was like
okay.
there and then he disappears. Because she sees all three of them, I think, and then he disappears.
You're right, right, okay. And I mean, I feel like Egwene's ability to see these dreams. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it at this point. So it's like,
I mean,
we get the Perrin
yeah,
has like, sort of dreams. We get Rand has these dreams. We get Egwene has these dreams. How do you at this point? And I know you were actually reading out the Dragon Reborn at this
yeah,
point, but you've also gotten to the Shadow Rising earlier.
yeah.
But like, what do you think about the dreams, like generally, just for
I
you?
mean, it seems like Rand has like no control of them other than like he can like interact and that like things happen to him when he goes to dream. So I think that Rand is just like the dreams are happening to him.
Yeah,
And it seems like, at least at this point, that like Egwene can see things that are like happening. Like, I don't know if it's like parallels or other people's dreams or something, but it seems like she can see what's going on in other people's lives that are like
right.
really, really close to what is happening in reality in some way,
Yeah,
like in just like a synchronicity kind of way. And then with Perrin, it seems like his dreams are somehow tied to the wolves. I don't know if there's a character that comes back at this point, but like it seems like his dreams, like he like turns into a wolf maybe and is like kind of like more close to the wolves. That's what
Yeah.
like entering into the brain of Maya that has not gotten as far as I am. Like that's what I think is going on.
I don't know how much I don't know if you've ever read the Game of Thrones books, but like um differently from the books or from the show. In the books, there's a bunch of dreams that all the characters have. And I've read that series before. I read that series up to what it was the last book that's come out, Dance of Dragons in Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire.
Whichever
And
is the green book, that was the last one I read. So I
okay,
don't know
okay.
how far I got. I do
That's
remember
I think that's the
thinking,
last one. I'm pretty sure that's the last one. But there's a bunch of dreams in that book. And I've kind of, I kind of came kind of essentially from finishing those books to Wheel of Time. And it was kind of weird to me when I realized there was sort of a subtle difference. Like, and it's almost exactly what you're picking up on, like how the dreams seem to be happening to Rand, but for Perrin and Egwene, it seems to kind of be like more prophetic to
yeah.
them, or at least more helpful and like more in their control,
Mhm.
which I think is cool that you picked up on that, because I think I picked up on that as well, because it's a definite difference between all three of the dream sequences
Yeah.
that we've got. I feel like
Why
we
it's
get them from all three of them.
I think that's part of why I get annoyed about Rand, because it's just like, why don't you figure out that you're like in a dream and you can probably do stuff? Or maybe he can't.
Right,
I don't know.
right. It's definitely like, for him, I think he does figure out stuff from them, but like he's so much more just trying to get out of them and trying to like refute the dream than Egwene or Perrin, who seem to
Yeah.
just kind of accept it for what it is.
Yeah. But I guess Rand's in denial about a lot of things. So it makes
Yeah,
sense that he wouldn't be like trying to deal with whatever's going on in his dreams.
right. Yeah, exactly. That's his MO. He usually just tries to like refute everything until
That
until
was
it's
just a dream.
yeah.
And
Um,
then they meet the Amerlin seat,
yeah,
Nynaeve and Egwene, and they get a lesson. And
a quote unquote lesson in the one power.
yeah,
So they kind of go through the like motions of like open yourself to the the rosebud opening itself to the wind, or to the river, that's sort of like that idea of like being calm and like accepting and like letting go. And they kind of realize that, haphazardly, that like for Nynaeve, these sort of routines are working for Egwene, but for Nynaeve, like she just, the more irate she gets, the more angry she gets about the situation, the better it seems for her channeling ability, because
yeah.
she like ends up blasting the well, the Armelin ends up tying her or cutting her off from the one power, and then Nynaeve's, in her anger, able to do the same thing to the Armelin, which is
Bold move.
indicative of her ability. Also, like, kind of crazy.
It's so funny. Nynaeve, like her like connection to being a wisdom and how like it makes her like a leader. She's basically the Amerlin seat of Emmons Field. So
Yeah.
I think in a way she sees each other, she sees her as like an equal in a weird way. Like I've never like she never seems like deferent about anyone.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree.
And it's just
She
so funny
doesn't
to me.
she does not like enjoy the position she's in at all, which
Yeah.
is like, you know, it's such an interesting, it's just so, her character is so complex, I
Mhm.
think, that I love reading. I love
Yeah.
stuff, the chapters where she's in, because it's just like any situation, I don't know how she's gonna handle it. And for me, like, I'd probably be more like a Egwene, like, learning about this new ability, and like someone who's like literally as powerful as the Armelin. and is training me. I would be kind of awestruck, right? But Nynaeve is just like can't cede any ground to anybody.
Yeah.
It's just like crazy. I don't know, but yeah. So basically, they kind of learn that she's got a block. I think essentially, I don't know if they say it so clearly here, but essentially, Nynaeve is somewhat powerful, and I think that's very clear.
Mm-hmm.
But she also can't channel of her own volition. I guess she's got to be really angry. So that's kind of a thing they realize. And it kind of takes a Nynaeve aback when she realizes what she's done. Same thing with when it happened to Perrin as well.
Yeah.
But I think we start to realize that she can channel on her own. She's got to be very hangry. maybe not hangry, but like just angry in general. Kind of like the Hulk. She's the Hulk of this world.
Oh, it's gonna be so fun when she finally figures out how to do it. Huh?
Yeah. So at the end of this, we kind of realize that Egwene is a dreamer. And I think they basically end up at Tar Valon at the end of this. Well, I think we've figured out that Egwene was a dreamer last chapter with them, but they end up in Tar Valon at the end, and they meet Shiriam, who is the mistress of novices, who is the kind of like the on border for the Aes Sedai. And so they kind of meet her, and then
she terrifies me.
Yeah.
I feel like if I was a novice, I'd be in her room crying like every day.
Yeah. They
I'd
do
probably
make
get
it
kicked
seem
out.
they make it seem like the mistress of novice is like a person to fear.
Yeah.
You sort of get that from her right away, even though like she's like seemingly like a friendly sort of person. I don't know, for some reason anyone with like bright red hair, curly hair, I don't think of as like I think of it as like friendly just innately, but like apparently this character is kind of intimidating.
It's interesting too, because like Tar Valon, like as soon as they get there, they are treated very differently than they were when they were just traveling with the Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
Like kind of immediately went from being these like interesting, like two new people to just being novices / potentially unaccepted.
Right. I guess that leads us to the last chapter here, where we pick back up with Rand, Hurin, and Loial back with Selene, and they are back in the real world. And
conveniently very close to where Padon Fane is with the Trollocs.
Right. And so,
I wonder how that happened.
It's almost like as if it was meant to be. They took a sort of like a speed route, or a quick save, got them back to where they need to go.
Then they get the horn and the dagger, and the book is over. They won the Great Hunt.
Yeah, it's all over. Everything went really well for them after this.
Yeah. My favorite 2-book series, The Wheel of Time.
Yeah. No, they figure out that Fane and the Dark Friends are there. Somehow they're and this is with Selene egging Rand on to like sneak in there and get the horn.
Mm-hmm.
He and Loial go in. Him, a very tall redheaded dude with a sword and like a red jacket, sneak into this camp.
And Loial, it's just because he's strong, right?
Right.
He's like, you can't lift the box by yourself, because the horn's in like a huge box, right?
Right. It's like a huge like box that Rand couldn't lift himself as like a pretty strong, older teenager. But so both of them are able to sneak into this camp undetected, steal the horn and the dagger,
which are just sitting in the middle of the ground, just
right,
stacked on top of each other. Nobody's guarding.
I mean, I guess to be fair, like
They're all
they
sleeping.
did show up in front of where, you know, as far as the Dark Friends and Fane knew, that the people who were chasing them were behind them. So
That's
like
true.
the idea that someone would come from the front of them is, you know, I guess not really plausible for them. But the other thing is that they're able to. I mean, I guess the other thing is like the Trollocs are not really like they don't fight for themselves, right? They fight because of the urging of the merge. Also, like I mean, all of it makes sense, I guess, in a
Yeah,
way,
it
but
does.
it's
It
like
makes
very
sense when it's
convenient,
happening, but
right?
it's also just funny that it's like it seems like the driving thing, the name of the book is The Great Hunt, and it's like getting the horn, and then they just like get the horn like 19 chapters in, which for one of these books is
Right. They just kind of get it, you know? But I do enjoy that we actually get Rand purposely killing Trollocs. I don't think we've gotten that yet. Um
no.
and so he kills several of them
Mhm.
in their because they, you know, they end up alerting them as they like have the horn and the dagger and as they're fleeing. And so Rand actually has to kill some of them, which is I think notable because, you know, killing anything is going to be hard, even if
Yeah.
it's something like awful. But
Rand
uh,
hasn't really like killed anyone yet, has he?
he killed one Trolloc before,
Oh,
I
right, at the
believe.
bear at Winter Night.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
I,
think
I
he's
don't know if he's killed any more or not.
and he just stunned the people at that inn.
Yeah. So it's a
It's a
you
first,
know, it's a
kind of.
first. I think he kind of thinks about it too, but they're able to get away with it, and they meet back up with Hurin and Celine is like again very sussly wants to see the dagger and caress it, and like, you know, sees the horn. I guess she wants to kind of look at the horn and read it. I think she actually does read what it says on there. She kind of recoils at the dagger and tells Rand to throw the dagger away. But of course, Rand, once that's really all he cares about is getting the dagger back to Matt so that he
Yeah.
can heal Matt. Um, but yeah, so I mean, this sequence is you know, pretty cool because we get kind of like an abrupt sort of like into the hunt seemingly at this point. You know, the Great Hunt is the you know, the title of this. They go through some weird portal. They come out. They're somehow ahead of the people that they're chasing, and then they're able to sneak in, steal the horn and the dagger. And it's, you know, seemingly all over. And I guess their plan is to kind of head to Carrion.
I guess the reason for that is because Celine's one explanation of who she is that she's some kind of noble lady from some house in Carrion. Carrion? Carrion? Is that how you say
I
it?
think Carrion is right.
Carrion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where they head. And I guess the weird thing to me is like, why don't they try to double back and find Perrin and the others?
I think they're worried about getting caught again. So I think they
Oh,
think
that's fair.
we go to the nearest city and hopefully
Yeah,
they're heading
Trollocs
there.
like won't go into a city.
Right, right. So I guess that's the plan. I think it makes sense to Rand because he wants to get Celine home. He feels
Yeah.
that that's his duty as a noble lad, noble hero.
So funny how Rand is like, I don't want to be the hero, but then he does all the like chivalry things.
Right. I don't want to be the hero, but like, what would all the heroes do? I should do those things. But yeah, so I think that's the chapter we end on.
Yep.
We pick back up next week with you know, figuring out what happens if, you know, he meets back up with the group with Inktar and Co and Perrin and Matt. But yeah, so like we got the horn back, we got the dagger back. Everything seems
Nynaeve
like
and
it's going
Egwene
good.
are at magic school.
They're at magic school. That's, you know, we've seen the movies. They're gonna learn everything they need to know in like a few weeks and then face off with some baddie. That's always how that goes.
Yep.
But yeah, this is an interesting kind of spot here, because I didn't expect them to actually get the dagger and the horn this quickly. I kind of thought that'd be an end game sort of thing. So I definitely was taken surprised by that.
Yeah. Especially because they were like falling behind so much.
Right. And realizing that, like, I don't know how much we touched on this, but this world is literally like a mirror world. I think they kind of Celine kind of, again, knows a little bit about this, but they're kind of like worlds that exist because all options exist, essentially.
Yeah.
Like everything that you can imagine does exist in the Wheel of Time, but like it's kind of like parallel universes. It's like, anything you can imagine happens and exists. It's just like, it's a different place. And that's what this is.
And that one is like if like a couple wars went a little different.
Right.
That's where they were.
Exactly. So it's definitely an interesting concept, because it's one of those things you can't disprove. Like, what about, what happens when the end of the world, or when some slight change happens somewhere, and then what world breaks off from that? I feel like that's like a sort of those like infinite prophecy sort of things. You can't really figure the end of it out. But but yeah, so we'll end it there and come back next week with what happens next.
Thank you for joining us for is this the 11th episode? Yes, it is.
This is 11.
Thank you for joining us for our 11th episode of The Great Honey. Find us on Instagram and Twitter as Great Honey Pod, and Great Honey on TikTok, and The Great Honey anywhere that you can find podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And we'll be releasing new episodes every Friday-ish. Until then, see you around.
See ya.